Hello, and welcome to CTO Coffee Hour. I'm Matt Lee with Schematical, drinking my not coffee as always. And here with
Happy
me is
Tuesday.
Dominic DeMarco. Happy Tuesday.
Seems to be a regular occurrence that we do this chat on Tuesdays. Amazing coincidence, isn't it?
um, yeah. Well, usually what we do is we talk about whatever I wrote about on Monday, and this week's was about the AWS AI agent they just released that's coming for my job. And I know I
Hmm.
keep saying that, and I'll admit it is a little bit of a clickbaity headline. But like I said yesterday, I'm eager to see what it's capable of. They only have it in preview, last I heard. So, but basically, it's an AI, an agentic AI that will receive alerts in the system and attempt to suggest debugging options before you ever even get there. So by the time you get the ping, a bunch of research has been done. Theoretically, I don't know if it's going to actually take action or not take action. Maybe you can put some rules in it eventually, but likely it won't have taken action. It'll just have done a bunch of research into the system to try and figure out what's wrong with it. It could go very
So,
wrong, could go very right. Um,
so
yeah.
where do you think? So it has to be trained from something, right? So I mean, I imagine AWS has petabytes or whatever's bigger than petabytes, I guess, of support tickets and things like that. Do you think it's coming from somewhere like that? Or is it analyzing network traffic of how it normally behaves versus what happened? I mean, I don't even. What's your hypothesis on how this thing is learning what it's learning to give you suggestions?
If they were training it on human behavior, chances are they did that with their premium support tier. So a
Mhm.
ticket comes in and it probably took a snapshot of measurements, or took those measurements into account of the current system. So what's CPU like on across the ECS tasks or RDS or whatever. And then they probably monitored the support staff's behavior and whatever their proposed solution was, and used that to train it on. So that would be one way of doing it. Because I don't think you could get ample training data maybe from yeah, I don't know. AWS Q is just a generalized LLM. So yeah, I'm guessing they fine tuned it with their support, their premium support. I speculate on that. Um, but yeah, I mean, it hopefully will behave like a human. They also have other agents, I should say, too. I think they had a security one, but there's a whole. I can look it up actually because I don't have the verbiage right in front of me here. But there's a whole suite of agents they're going to put out for AWS that are fine tuned for specific things. So probably they'll have a FinOps agent
Mhm.
to cost optimize, a DevOps for internal outages, a security for when you're just a security audit.
So have you gotten access to this? Because so some months ago when we did a cloud war games event, thus your hat on your on your head right now, shameless plug. Um, you and the other experts were actually in there trying to determine what was wrong with the system, and I was using various LLMs to see if I could compete, and they were terribly, woefully, completely just underwhelming. Now, they also had no idea of the network or infrastructure topography either. I was just saying, my AWS whatever is down. What should I try to do?
Mhm. And this would be similar, but it would have access to the entire topology, the network map, and everything
Mhm.
instantly, and be more fine tuned for it. So we should rerun that scenario again with this DevOps agent. I guess there's a couple of agents I wouldn't mind trying. As for do I have access to it yet? No, it's in preview mode. There is an interactive demo, but it's extremely limited and it's more like a PowerPoint of sorts.
Mhm.
But it looks promising. I think I wouldn't give it decision making power off the bat,
Mhm.
but give it the ability to research and spin its wheels ahead of time. So by the time the call, makes it to me, I've got a bunch of preliminary information at my fingertips that I could see that speeding up my reaction to this. But by no means would I say, oh yeah, you can feel free to spin down this service, or
Mhm.
clear this cache. Like no, 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 no. Yeah.
I mean,
So
because
yeah.
it might even be able to notice that something changed in a secret manager, that might not be something you look at particularly quickly. You may do other diagnostics, but if it says, hey, here's a key that changed recently, or a setting, or something else that may help you really zoom in, because maybe you've seen this happen before, maybe a junior dev pushed something they shouldn't have pushed and had a dev key that went to production or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's absolutely possible. See, the rate at which it can examine things is faster than humans. But does it know which
Mhm.
things to examine first? I'm curious about that. So it's trained off human data. Hopefully, it reacts correctly, and examines the important things first. Otherwise, I don't know what the pricing is for this thing yet. They haven't published that I've seen. So it's possible to just burn a bunch of tokens by checking everything under the sun that's completely unrelated. So that'll be something that'll be very interesting to see. And then again, to see what its suggested reaction would be, because it's possible it could check all the stuff and draw completely foolish conclusions.
Mhm.
So we'll have to see again what it does there. So I mean, I think it'll improve over time, obviously, very, very quickly, because they're going to accumulate more training data based on the reactions people take afterwards. So if it suggests A and then they do B as a solution, I'm not sure how they're going to track that, but I'd wager they can figure out a way. Pretty smart over there.
And it's in everybody's best interest that infrastructure stay up and running. Now, you said there might be some sort of agent that might be able to help you set up your systems, et cetera, and do cost estimations. Now, is there a slight misalignment perhaps with um, AWS versus the customer, and how over provisioned should you be, how much redundancy you should have, and you can't just slide a couple sliders for figuring out what a complex, even multi-region topography would look like, but maybe it could give you two, three, four different options to choose from, and then write up a synopsis of the pros and cons of each of those.
Possibly. I haven't seen one that's specifically for provisioning yet. They're called Frontier agents, is the suite of agents, but I'd wager they've got one. This one's more of a response one, but yeah, I could see what you're saying is that the agent's not optimized to make your system more effective or efficient. It's optimized to sell compute cycles to you,
Mhm.
which that's an interesting thing. I mean, when you zoom out for a second, where we're in an odd space with supply and demand and compute cycles, where it appears demand for compute cycles for AI specifically is way higher
Mhm.
than supply is. So their best interest may not be to sell you more compute cycles because they're running out of them right now until they can, get these spin up these new data centers and then figure out how to fuel the darn things. So I'm not quite sure. Uh, that would be if they did optimize to sell you more compute cycles, even if you don't need them. Obviously, that's pretty shady. You wouldn't want that. But I'm not convinced they do that off the bat, at least right now. Especially because it seems like it's a finite resource right now.
Well, I mean, selling you too many compute cycles, I think, is a very subjective thing based upon the amount of redundancy and excess capacity you wish to have at any given moment.
Exactly. Well, that's the math. We got to write a calculator for this. No, that's the math
Hmm.
that I do with my clients and with the people in the schematical community, is to determine how much that is. And the formula is fairly straightforward. But if you only go out 1 hour a year, on average, just the average, out of all you the rest of the year you're completely up and your website's available and customers are buying, and it costs you $10,000. Does it make sense to add an extra $10,000 to your bill to go multi-region, multi whatever? Well, if that's $10,000 a month, versus a one-time loss of $10,000, throughout the year, you're going to be upside down by $110,000 on that investment. But if you go out for an hour a year and it costs you a couple $1 million, then the math starts to work for you. So I don't know if it'll do that math. I'm not sure if it has any concept of the bottom line, dollars and cents wise. So this actually brings us to an interesting point, and a tip out there for all you engineers that are very focused on the ones and zeros is, you should absolutely take into account the dollars and cents of the business. And I'm not sure this agent will do that, but a lot of engineers, I'm not going to say all engineers, but some engineers don't take that into account either. and that's the people that will have trouble transcending to the next, adapting to survive this barrage of agentic behavior, because they're not taking into account that context that the AI agents have no way of feeding in by default.
And something we were talking about yesterday that's tangentially related to this is you can prepay for a bunch of stuff, and this is more like to the planning agents versus the fix-it agents. You can prepay for a number of compute cycles for a number of years, but how do you know what your growth? I mean, if you can predict you're going to have perfect X% growth, that something like that may work. But if you've got jerky growth, if you don't know what your growth is going to be, if you don't know what your compute needs are going to be, because maybe you're going to add new features and you don't have a really solid handle on what that looks like, that may be a real challenge for an AI to give you options that make sense for your specific growth needs within your infrastructure.
I think they're good at looking at historical trends. Well, LLMs not so much, but you could add in, your basic time series model to look and extrapolate some basic data. But what it doesn't take into, it can look at your historical stuff. It can look at volatility and say, hey, you've got big fluctuations, so maybe we shouldn't commit, because it's because of the volatility. And it can take a look at your trajectory and say, yeah, you've been gaining at 5% per year in CPU usage, or 10%, or whatever it is. But what it can't take into account is external factors. Say the economy, say the
Google AdWords spend.
Sure, yeah, the advent of some new AI feature you're adding in that's going to triple your compute costs, because it's rocking on a GPU. So I think, again, without combining multiple models, so not just an LLM, because I don't think they're going to be that great at predicting, and they're historically bad at math, but using a secondary model like a time series or something like that, and then just factoring in that it really doesn't understand black swans at all. So you've got to make sure your head's really on a swivel for, I say black swans, but as someone in the C-suite asking to put a new GPU, AI intense feature that'll triple your compute cost, is not a black swan. That's happening quite a bit these days. So,
Well, or black swan could come in on the other side, and that is Mongo goes down, or Cloudflare goes down, or other problems with that as well. I suppose that's the opposite of what you're talking about, because it's going to take your systems down versus increase your compute. But a black swan in a beneficial way could be someone out there puts out some content on you and the algorithm loves it, and you're working out of a garage and you get a massive unpredictable spike in traffic, orders, etc.
absolutely, that's an option. Another thing is that that maybe with one client, we're about to save them a ton of money on their databases by basically changing the way some of their indexing is done. And so that the compute model just knows that, hey, it's been done this inefficient way for so long, we're just going to assume that's predictable. But us humans know that we're about to cut that cost almost in half or more. So
you're going to have a sawtooth action in there.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how good it would be at predicting that particular event. I mean, I guess we would tell it, hey, we're launching this and this is our updated predictions. So that would be
I wonder if an optimizer tool would even be able to recognize inefficiencies in your data structures in a way that could even suggest these things for you. That's going to be really fascinating going forward.
Okay, a year ago, I would have said probably not. These days, I'm not writing anything off. I've seen some pretty amazing stuff out there recently, and I think it's going to get better. So.
Well, this is brand new. I'm looking forward to you getting your hands on it so you can actually tell us what it's capable of doing. Is this something, it might even be worth running some experiments. You've obviously got, go for it. You have an idea.
Yeah. It's occurred to me that a good piece of content might be a John Henry style, the train guy that, he
Hmm.
was nailing down the train, and they got the automatic nailer or whatever to put down train tracks, and he was
He
kind
was
of,
tunneling through the mountain. Yep, laying
yeah, tunnel,
track.
yeah, there you go, and competing against that. And so human man versus machine here. So that might be an interesting thing to run sometime as a comparison to see, have Jaybird Cloud War games as both and see
Mm,
which one solves it faster. And it's quite, again, it can read stuff a lot faster than I could possibly click,
mm.
but at the same time, does it know what to check first? I don't know what it prioritizes. It might check everything, and it'll take it longer because I know what to check. And can it draw the right conclusions? I don't know, but it'll be fun to check out.
And it'll be, I mean, unfortunately, I mean, you've got some clients that have substantial AWS infrastructure. You can't really run, you can run it when there's problems, but you seldom have problems. Therefore, you can't just induce problems on the production infrastructure. Um, I
No,
guess
but
my point
I
is the
could.
more complex things get, I mean, is it going to get lost in the complexity of a massive infrastructure versus these relatively small infrastructures you set up for cloud war games?
That is a great question as well. They do, if you feed them enough context, they get a little bit lost on longer
Mm,
conversations. You got to keep them focused. So I think that will be interesting with the more complex stuff. About production, we could easily use an infrastructure as code to spin up a lower provision production B and attach it to
mm.
that. Again, the exact details of implementation, I haven't. Again, it's in preview mode, so I can't actually attach it or see how it works yet. But assuming I could just say, hey, this is the infrastructure you're in charge of. I guess I could spin it up on a B account too, so it only has access to it that way. We could run some experiments and see how it behaves there.
Could this be a beneficial, um, I don't want to say quite QA or something like that on a QA infrastructure that mirrors in most ways the production infrastructure, just lesser provision servers and things like that.
I hadn't thought about using it for QA. It could, it'd be an interesting experiment if you had one AI that was a chaos monkey, and it just breaks stuff,
Mm,
and another one, and this one, and they kind of worked like a GAN training against each other. That
mhm.
actually, that might have been how AWS trained it. I don't know, but that
Could
could have
be.
been interesting to see a generational adversarial neural network. I mean, I guess it'd be not as real time, but I don't know. It's an interesting concept. But no, I think that's more likely than just having this thing train itself there. I'm getting sidetracked, but yeah, that's interesting concept.
Huh. You'll have to get your hands on it. Is there any way that people could push to touch this, or do you have to have a golden ticket? Is this invite only at this point?
As far as I know, it just says it's in preview mode. So there's probably some people that have got access to it already that are out there. I
Mm,
didn't go to reinvent this year or anything like that, and I don't have any friends on the inside, but I'm sure they'll have it out there shortly. I mean, the way this thing's moving, and I would encourage everybody to examine this technology. It sounds like I'm going to get defensive, like it's going to steal my job, and I know that's my headline there,
Well, that,
but
that that's been since the advent of computer programming that every paradigm shift is going to remove somebody's job. It just moves you to a, dare I say, a higher position in the stack.
yeah, no, I've thought a lot about this. The elevator operators. When's the last time you saw an
Mm,
elevator operator? It's not like they're completely unemployed anymore. They either become technicians or they get another job where you basically can hit a button and are nice to people when they walk in. It's they're not completely out of business. I will say Blockbuster was a paradigm where I'm like, okay, well, Blockbuster's out of business, but at the same time, those clerks found other jobs, gainful employment. It's
mm,
not like they completely don't do anything anymore. So um, I'm optimistic that these will augment the way we
mm,
interact with this stuff. I will say this, and I'm paraphrasing what I think is a Darwin quote, but it's not the fastest or the smartest or the strongest that survive. It's those most adaptable to change.
mm,
And I think those that are ready to adapt and willing to adapt will be able to do it a lot better. If you're like, you know, a hardcore network guy, or if you're the knowledge silo guy that like, is used to doing everything manually because it keeps you in a job versus, and you're like, I gotta go out, wake up at 3 a.m. every night and run this batch job because I'm going to bear this cross instead of automating the damn thing, then you're going to struggle. That stuff's going to automate you right out of a job. So we have to be ready to adapt, and you have to keep your head on a swivel.
In a similar fashion, you don't have to be the fastest one so the bear doesn't catch you and eat you. You just have to be not the slowest one.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be, yeah. A recent example is I was hiring graphic designers to do the front end of the website and things like that. And I don't have to right now because AI is good enough. It can design good enough for me. So there's a little bit of money out of the economy that way. But if it was something serious, something big, go ahead.
We also had some really bad experiences with some shysters and not particularly good people on Fiverr that also fed into saying, okay, we're going to try to do this another way.
Actually, I liked my design guy. He was actually good.
Oh, well, we had a problem with video guys, but
we had a problem with a couple other guys. Yeah. But no, I think
we found somebody that crushed it right off the bat. We probably would have gone that way, but just the amount of time and energy it took. So maybe you need AI to check the real people to feed the AI. Then we're getting into a feedback loop. Then we're getting into a circle of very much like the hiring AI circle problem right now.
Well, and let me flip this thing a little bit as well. So let's just say I wasn't me and I was an aspiring entrepreneur, and before you'd have to hire someone and you'd have to go back and forth with them and all that stuff there. Well, you can go to Lovable right now and basically get your idea out there faster and for free. So ideas that previously required more capital aren't going to require as much capital. So, if you're sitting there waiting for someone to give you an idea, a business idea or something, if you're sitting there waiting for someone to hire you to do a basic task, instead, maybe you should be coming up with your own ideas and validating them, and going out there and trying different things, because it's never been cheaper to validate ideas and get them to market. The rate at which I can boot up an MVP right now is never been faster.
And this is going to continue so complexity is going to increase, which also increases time, but then technology is going to improve, which is going to decrease time. So it used to be that if you wanted to do an MVP, you had to go find a bunch of Java developers and buy some pizza boxes and put them in a rack somewhere.
You got it.
And then we getting shared hosting services and WordPress that drive. So it's just been complexity increases, but technology increase the effectiveness of the technology increases faster, such that the time overall decreases and cost decreases.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
I'm with you 100%. I mean, and if you're the person waiting for someone to tell you what to do, like, hey, I need this design, I suggest you try and be the person that's coming up with ideas. Entrepreneurs are going to thrive in this climate. Now, there's going to be more ideas out there that actually get produced, which means a lot more noise and a lot more bad ideas are going to get out there. But hopefully, with fast iteration, you can get to that good idea, that home run, and knock it out of the ballpark faster. But so I guess, if you're worried about AI taking your job, start thinking about how you can create value for others still, and then use the AI tools to execute on that. And I think that's going to put you in a better spot than sitting there passing out resumes right now, So that's my 2 cents.
All right. Well, give me a shameless plug, and let's bring this to wrap this one up.
If you're at all interested in working with us to put a human in the loop and keeping your infrastructure up and running, that's what we do here at Schematical. We also got the Schematical community. So if you're looking to sharpen your skills, or if you don't have a big enough need for a one-on-one consultation, we also have schematical.com/community, where that is the group coaching community we're kicking off here, and that way you can still get access to our expertise, trainings, cloud war games, etc. through that. So
until
with that said, I'm Matt with Schematical, and have a great day.
See y'all. Ciao.
Here's the awkward part where I have to find the end stream button while we're
top right
sitting here. All right. Bye, everybody.